This meeting of the Inverclyde Council Police and Fire and Rescue Panel. Just before I start, I'd like to welcome Adrian Rice from the Fire Service, who's the stand-in commander at the moment. Welcome, Adrian, who has delegated the presentation of the report to Rod. I'd also like to welcome Stuart Taylor, who's the head of estates at Police Scotland. Welcome, Stuart, to this meeting. We start with any apologies or substitutions.
Apologies from Councillor Haley, Councillor Jackson substituting, Councillor Paisley with Councillor Armstrong substituting, Robson Mackenzie and Councillor Brown. We'll now move to a roll call. The following members please indicate if they are present at the meeting either in person or remotely. Councillor Armstrong. Present in the chamber. Councillor Cassidy.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Clopperty.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Crowther.
Present in chamber.
Jackson.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Law.
Present remotely.
Councillor Reynolds. Councillor Quinn.
Present remotely.
Councillor Wilson.
Present in the chamber.
Are there any declarations of interest?
Thank you very much. I've got to make an opening statement. Welcome to this meeting of Inverclyde Council's Police and Fire and Rescue Panel. This meeting is being held remotely and also in person and will be filmed and recorded for subsequent broadcasts. It's not going out live, but it will be available for subsequent broadcasts, available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and the Data Protection Act 2018. We broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with Council published policies available through the Council's website. Members of the Council are reminded that they should follow the Council's established meeting protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who also received invites to the meeting. Thank you for that. We proceed to the business of the day. Number 2 agenda item under performance management, Police Scotland performance report. Rona.
Good afternoon. Thank you, convener. I will now present the I'll now present the police report, which covers the period to the end of February 2025. Whilst I won't rehearse the full report, as always, members will note there are some positive outcomes, but equally some challenging areas for police and our partners. In terms of incident demand, crimes and offences in Inverclyde have decreased by almost 4% to just over 5,200, while national figures have increased slightly. 6 of the 8 crime groups in Inverclyde saw a decline, including sexual crimes, crimes of dishonesty and road traffic offences. However, non-sexual violent crimes and antisocial behaviour offences rose. The overall detection rate for crimes in Inverclyde is just over 72%, an increase from last year and higher than the national average. Overall police incidents have decreased by 7% to just over 16,500, largely due to fewer abandoned 999 calls. Other incidents such as fire and public nuisance reports also saw declines, while reports of missing persons and noise complaints have increased. We continue to collaborate with partner agencies to ensure that effective policing response to all of our community issues. In terms of violence, violent crime has increased by almost 7% compared to the same period last year, with a total of 725 recorded crimes. The rise in minor assaults was the main reason for this increase. Serious assaults also saw a slight rise with an additional 2 cases. The detection rate for violent crime in Inverclyde is sitting at over 64%, which is up from 47% last year. So 2/3 of those crimes being, I'm pleased to say, being solved. I'm also pleased to report that there are 2 fewer attempted murders and 3 fewer murders compared to the previous year. In terms of disorder and antisocial behaviour, I am happy to report that complaints about disorder in Inverclyde went down by 9%, with a total of just over 1,800 incidents reported. Addressing disorder and antisocial behaviour is a major goal of the Inverclyde Partnership Hub. This is a police-led initiative. I'm sure you're all well familiar with the setup just now with other organisations contributing to our efforts to tackle these issues. Crimes related to damage and reckless behaviour also dropped by 21%, totalling 429 crimes, and the number of willful fire-raising incidents fell significantly, with 30 crimes reported compared to 71 in the previous year. Additionally, recorded vandalisms fell by almost 1/5. Hate crime. Regrettably, during this period, Inverclyde recorded a total of 128 hate crimes, with race being the most commonly targeted characteristic, and that accounts for just over half of the recorded incidents. Due to new legislation and changes in recording methods, comparing these numbers to anything we have or hold previously is challenging. However, it is worth noting that our detection rate for these crimes stands at 68%. Detecting these crimes provides us with intervention and prevention opportunities, and one that we continue to explore with partners. In terms of our missing persons, Inverclyde treats all missing person reports with the utmost seriousness, and these are subject to continual threat assessment and risk grading to properly evaluate those risks and threats to the individual or to any others involved. During the reporting period, there were a total of 249 missing person reports involving 127 individuals. Of these, 30 individuals were reported missing more than once, so you'll be able to work out that there are some individuals reported missing multiple times. Notably, 68% of those reported missing were children, with a significant portion being care experienced young people. In terms of our domestic abuse, tackling domestic abuse is a top priority for Register and Inverclyde Division, and it generated some discussion last time I was here. Recognising that domestic abuse is often underreported, we are dedicated to providing that sensitive and consistent response for victims. Inverclyde saw a 20% increase in domestic abuse incidents over the past year, totalling 751 calls to police, with 47% of those resulting in a recorded crime. Multi-agency collaboration is absolutely essential for safeguarding victims and holding offenders to account. With frameworks such as MATAC and MARAC, and the Right to Ask and Power to Tell, we're providing all necessary support and intervention opportunities with our partners. In terms of our acquisitive crime, as we mentioned earlier, Inverclyde recorded a decrease in crimes of dishonesty, totaling just over 1,300 incidents. The detection rate for these crimes improved significantly from 42% to 53%, well surpassing the national average of 35%. Housebreaking crimes fell by 14%, with 107 incidents reported, and the detection rate for these crimes also rose from 20% to 27%. Although fraud remains a key concern due to evolving tactics, it dropped by nearly 23%, with 138 crimes reported. Common fraud types include banking and retail scams, with romance and investment frauds continuing to occur but less frequently. Conversely, theft by shoplifting increased by 17%, reaching 705 incidents. Repeat offenders accounted for 20% of these crimes, with alcohol being the most frequently stolen item. And we had some good work yesterday by a couple of our officers who proactively stopped and searched an individual and recovered a significant amount of stolen alcohol on his person. Moving into road safety, during the reporting period, Inverclyde recorded 47 road traffic casualties, which is a reduction of 2 compared to the same period last year. A total of 886 road traffic offences have been reported in Inverclyde, with figures remaining relatively unchanged from the previous year. A proactive focus on road safety and crime has led to significant increases in various offences. Speeding offences have risen by 54%, with an initiative ongoing as we speak, with areas raised as problematic by councillors. So again, I'd like to thank you for highlighting those, and hopefully you will be reassured with some of the responses that we will be publicising. Mobile phone offences and driving under the influence saw a 37% increase, and the detection rate for road traffic offences in Inverclyde stands at 85%, which is an improvement on last year's rate of 81%. And that concludes my report. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Chief Superintendent. Colleagues, do you have any questions? Councillor Jackson, you were in quickly.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm only subbing in today, so if I ask any questions I've been answered previously, I apologise. It's, as usual, there's a lot of good news in it, but there's also stuff that kind of is concerning. Just on two things, if I can ask two questions, Chair. It's good to see that knife crime has fell, and you've cited the work within the schools and the community for helping to reduce those. My question is, of the offenders, how many of these young people are actually school age or college, young people? I'd like to know the kind of stats on that. It's a safe as been answered previously, I apologise. On hate crime, again, just to, we should never tolerate it. We need to call it out every time we see these types of things. My concern is the amount of hate, racist abuse which is going on online at the minute. I'm just wondering if there's any action the police can take and how we would report it. I know it's a difficult situation trying to determine what's offensive online and what's abusive or not, but it's absolutely intolerable, so it is. And I think as councillors we have seen a rise in some of the abuse that is going on. Just two questions, David, thanks.
No, I think two very good questions, Rona.
Yeah, absolutely. In relation to the young people and the knife crime and how that breaks down, I don't have that figure on me just now, but I can certainly get that for you. There has been obviously a couple of incidents recently, not here, but nationally, and certainly within the west of Scotland. I know that will be a huge concern locally as well, as they are to us. There's a lot of work nationally ongoing, from my perspective, in terms of the training that we're providing to cops, trying to get into that proactive policing arena, as well as going into the preventative space through the schools, through some of the initiatives that I mentioned already. As I said, I don't have the figure that you're looking for in terms of what's the split between school-age children knife carrying and what is it, adults, but it is a concern, yes. There will be, amongst that statistic, children and school-age children, and there's a lot of work that we are currently doing with partners to get into the preventative space, but also proactively from our side of things in terms of our stop search, looking at the right areas, the right times, and trying to get ahead of that curve slightly to try and prevent any further loss of life or any further harm to any individuals. Moving on to the hate crime, we had actually teed up somebody from one of our hate crime advisors to come and speak today, but we've postponed that to the next one because we've got Stuart with us today to talk about the
Stuart's the substitute.
Stuart's the substitute. Actually, I can say that Stuart was the priority more than the substitute. So yeah, in terms of online, anything that you are seeing online which you feel in any way encroaches into that criminal space, that the abuse, the language, whatever that looks like, please do report it in, because it will cost. Just because it's online doesn't mean it doesn't constitute an offence. So we'll be more than happy to take those reports and look at that for you. Many of the statistics here are presented face to face. So sometimes it's neighbourhoods, sometimes it's actually our own officers. They're encompassed within those statistics as well. And the odd one or two here or there are online. But we'd be really keen to hear from you if you have something specific to report that we're not aware of, because certainly just because it happens online doesn't mean it's acceptable. There's certainly lots of avenues for us in terms of investigation, even if the origin of that individual is not within this community. So nationally, we'd be able to put a response in place. And hopefully that answers a couple of your questions there, but we can split that knife crime statistic for you and come back with an answer.
That'd be
Right,
good.
is that okay, councillor? So you'll get that and forward it on to councillor Jackson. Right. Just as a follow-up, David, in terms of stop and search, how prevalent is that amongst your officers?
I think our stop search activity and stop search rates are actually quite good. The stop and search can be done within the confines of the law. The stop search needs to have reasonable grounds to stop and search someone. Just again on the knife point you make, particularly with young people, don't forget, I think we've read it before, but we have the knife protocols agreement with education. So with any jobs, any suspicion that a young person attending school or a youth club or anywhere, we will share information with education. That young person can be stopped at the school door coming in, the bag, the searched, etc. And we have seized other weapons in that way. And that flow goes two ways as well. Education passes a lot of information about young people in the community who are carrying knives or weapons, and that allows us to engage with them, stop and search if necessary, and cover that. It's a good protocol, it does work.
Thank you.
David, could I just ask one supplementary?
Yes, councillor Jackson.
See the young people who get caught carrying a knife, what is their reason being? What reason are they given for carrying a knife? Protection?
Thank you, Chair. Just before the Chief Inspector takes over to answer that question, it's obviously important that no young person is identified.
Very good.
Yeah, private. Yeah, when you stop in the street or getting given receipts for their own protection. And with young people to command solidarity to education as opposed to punishment is the best avenue for that, to be honest, is to tell them in the future and provide them some sort of context around the consequences of what carrying a weapon can do. Because actually it won't keep them safe, it won't make them safe, but they won't protect themselves with it. Either end up hurting somebody else or they will help themselves. So I would agree with you, the main reason is use of their own protection.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Law, please.
Thanks, David. My question is on the drug deaths. So cocaine is identified in all 7 of the confirmed deaths in this report, and it's the only drug highlighted in the report, where normally we've had maybe 1 or 2 extras as well. I just wondered is there an increasing problem with this drug specifically? Is it getting worse in terms of the level of use or abuse, or is it getting more potent or dangerous for the users?
I can probably come in on that. There's a number of issues, most of which you actually alluded to in the question. Yes, becoming more prevalent. It's becoming a better quality, if that's the way to term it. So it's becoming more potent, and it's presenting a higher risk. It's all in the supply and demand. We're seeing increases in its use, and increases in the quality of it, which is having this knock-on effect. There's a number of other substances which are not mentioned there, which are sneaking into some of these deaths. But yeah, you've covered them in your question, to be perfectly honest. Those are all factors in these drugs then, and actually the prevalence of the drug itself.
Thank you. And is it more likely? Is it more likely like crack cocaine and is the way that that's impacting these deaths?
Yeah, there's a number, to be perfectly honest. It's not exclusive to any one form or format. It really depends on the individual.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to highlight that just so that people are aware. Obviously, even taking these things recreationally carries a significant risk, especially as the potency increases. So thank you.
Yeah, no, and you think it used to be associated with
I said that you would be there to take some time after Harvard polish.
It sounds like the Greenock Telegraph.
Yeah, I think
A wee bit of mumbo jumbo.
yeah, once upon a time, cocaine was associated with a certain demographic, and it was quite a drug with people, a yuppie drug, yeah, a drug for people who had disposable income, and it was more expensive. It was recreational, but it's no longer the case, to be perfectly honest. And the prevalence, yeah, the potency, the availability, these things all impact, and I'm sure we will see changes again 10 years down the line, but certainly just now that is what we're seeing, and those are the reasons why.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Pam?
Thanks, Convener. I just wanted to add to that because I have quite recently a member of the Alcohol and Drugs Partnership, and all the issues that have already been explained in terms of availability, potency and so on, but one of the major differences from historic use is that cocaine is being injected, and that is a major factor and a huge risk because, well, as I understand it, cocaine doesn't have a long-lasting effect. So people who are injecting cocaine are injecting much more frequently.
How frequently?
Well, I mean, if someone, now I'm not an expert, I'm talking.
No, you know more than I do.
I'm talking about, as I say, what I learned whilst on the Alcohol and Drug Partnership. Someone who, for example, is injecting heroin would be injecting probably twice a day, 2 times a day. But someone whose drug of choice is cocaine, and it's the drug of choice because of potency, availability, and cost, could be injecting 5, maybe more times. And obviously, when someone is injecting, the risks go up every time they're injecting because they don't know what's in it, they don't, and so on. I just wanted to add the element of cocaine being used as an injectable drug is a big change. Thank you.
From that, Chair, if I may, you're absolutely right, and it's a change in culture, not just the drugs themselves, but the users. So 20 years ago, all the drug deaths on that page would have been heroin, without a doubt. The drug users themselves, people are drug dependent, people are needing help, try to transition away from heroin to use cocaine. Feedback from some of the ADB groups that I've been to is that speaking to people who are drug addicts, when you suggest to them that you're drug dependent, you're a drug addict, well, no, it's fine, I just use cocaine. They don't see cocaine as an addictive substance. I don't use heroin anymore, I've managed to move on to cocaine, I'm doing better now, but we know they're not doing better, it's very deadly indeed if it's not. As they're injecting it and not being used properly. So it's a change in culture amongst the drug users themselves. Feel as if they're using cocaine, not as bad as it would be if they were on heroin, but it's still a dangerous drug, unfortunately.
That's an interesting and educational exchange between the two. Thank you for that. Thank you. Do we have any other questions? No, I do have.
John. That's fine, thank you.
I'll keep my question for the next.
Oh, yeah, that's magic. Cheers. Again, just looking at the drug-related deaths, it is welcome that Police Scotland are working along with partners and delivering educational programmes to schools. However, when we look at the sexual crime and the digital crime, we know that there are many young persons who are being coerced, possibly by predators, to exposing themselves in front of their laptops and then possibly being held basically to ransom by these predators. Nationally, I am aware that young persons have taken their own lives through that. Is there any educational programme that is going through schools warning about taking photographs and then exchanging them?
Yeah, so
I think after Rona, I think that Hugh would like to add to that as well. Carry on, Rona.
yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, absolutely. And our partnerships and prevention team have various inputs that they give to schools, that they give to young people, and which is exactly that. It is highlighting that as a concern. Online safety, what you should and should not be doing how you protect yourself in terms of your security settings, in terms of the friendship groups that people that you invite into your social media space or your gaming space or whatever that looks like. So there are a number of avenues along with partners to promote online safety for young people, to try and prevent them getting into that trap where actually they're engaging with somebody online that is not who they want to be. Absolutely, it's a big concern, because clearly it's something that takes place in a private space, in a private setting, in the home environment, and so really looking to try and put that education piece out through the schools, and parents as well, pushing the awareness around just online safety and security, and it can be a really upsetting time, as you can imagine, for young people who think they're communicating with somebody who it turns out they really aren't, and sometimes that can actually happen within friendship groups as well. In terms of communicating online, it's real safety advisory and preventative work to try and stop that occurring in the first place, and alerting young people to the dangers that you've highlighted.
That's lovely, thank you.
Okay, Hugh.
Thanks very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Very similar to the Commander saying, is that there's a lot of work that's on in schools, from primary school to secondary school, around issues like this. And either through some of my youth work team or some of the alcohol and drugs teams that we work in schools. It's a key focus for us to make sure that young people understand about the vulnerable going on to the computers and things like that. So we are aware of this and we're working very closely with our schools.
That's me, thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Cassidy.
Thank you, Chair. First questions around shoplifting, crimes. I know that down your report there's a 70% increase on the previous year's figures, and is it 9 individuals were charged with a collective total of 63 shoplifting crimes in Inverclyde. So we're just looking to see what is Police Scotland doing, particularly in Inverclyde, to tackle the issue of shoplifting.
Yeah, shoplifting is a real national issue just now, as I'm sure you're aware. And we have a number of, again, sitting in the partnerships and prevention space, opportunities to liaise directly with our shopkeepers, the big organisations who have a lot of opportunities within their own environment. So we will provide them advice on where to locate their higher value goods, how to secure them, how to identify people. We have exclusion opportunities for particularly prevalent individuals. And as I said earlier, we've got our own officers out there and proactively looking and stopping and searching those individuals within those high tariff areas, the areas that we know are particularly problematic for us. And what we also know from the data is not just the areas that are problematic, but the stores which are presenting vulnerabilities in terms of whether that's security, CCTV, positioning, all of those tactics that I spoke about before, to try and target hard and make it more difficult and more challenging for individuals to steal from those premises. So it's a real collective response and something we've got a real focus on here in the Clyde. Because the demand on us is big as well, and that's the bit that we really need to realise and capture, because the preventative space will help us realise those efficiencies so we can start targeting some of our other issues that have been presented in the report. But David, if you want to comment anything local.
Yeah, just to say that it is an issue. As we know, we do take it very seriously. We've got dedicated town centre officers to Glasgow to Greenock who work very hard on it. We do have a large volume of work, a large turnover, cases reported to the fiscal, etc. Where we can, we'll always apply for bail conditions and inclusion orders to keep certain people with the town centre and the big retailers. Quite often, offenders, when they go to court, rather than given a custodial sentence or a fine, will go for diversionary measures. And I've no issue with that at all, because quite a lot of it's drug related, as we've already spoke about, or it's alcohol related. But they go through a process there, but they have to engage in through social work and support services. If they fail to engage in that process and sent back to the court, that can take a number of weeks, if not months. But of course, during that time, they're still out shoplifting and offending and being arrested and sent back to court. So yes, sometimes it can be a bit of a vicious circle, especially for repeat offenders. But rather way of it, we do work hard on it.
Okay.
Another question, Councillor Cassidy?
Yeah, well, naturally my question is going to be around actually the estate, so it's very handy with the gentleman sitting next to you over that. So I think obviously the most pressing question is...
I was keeping that question for me.
I think the most pressing question is, do we have a timeline of when we can actually expect something being announced to tell people what is happening with Greenock Police Station in the future of it?
So, convener, I think would this be the most appropriate time just to bring
I
Stuart in?
think it's very appropriate to
I
bring
will-
Stuart
I
in,
will
yes.
Invite him because Stuart's done us a favour here today to come and help us present the position on the states as it relates to Inverclyde. Obviously, that being the most pressing on everybody's mind within this room and virtually as well. So I'll hand over to Stuart, who will just give us the current position on the states and how it impacts on the local community here.
Afternoon, everybody. A bit of an update from Police Scotland's estate overall. You will be aware that we declared in late 23 around the intention for our estate across the country. That's then led to a lot of work being done to create a master plan, is what we call it. And the first stage of that was to gather all the information across our whole estate and present that to the Scottish Police Authority for approval. This is a 10-year plan that we need to embark on to improve the buildings that we operate. And we have the Scottish Government support for the funding around that. So that was done late last year and into this financial year. The next part of that work will be to identify the solutions for all of these premises across the country, and Greenock obviously being one of them, as well as others throughout this area. The difficulty, we've got a unique position when it comes to police stations. It's incredibly complex, incredibly difficult, especially when you factor into custody, etc., in particular areas. And we're much aware about, officer abstraction and all that sort of thing. So there's no absolute date that I can sit here and give. I would love to, given everybody's expecting that. But we are embarking on a piece of work that will identify the correct solution for Greenock and the communities around. And of course, operational colleagues will be the absolute deciding factor in what works for them and the locality around it. There is lots of suggestions out there. When Police Scotland declare that they're looking for new buildings, etc., there's lots of interest that people are trying to tell us this one will work and that one will work and all that sort of thing. But in reality, it's very difficult to find something that absolutely fulfills their needs. And that's our commitment. We want to embark on this progress across the whole country, but in particular in this area, because that's what you're interested in, is to make sure that we get the right outcome. We'll not rush into it. We'll absolutely make sure that we get the right solution here. You've heard it from very senior officers, etc., that it's their intention always to have that in Greenock. And what that looks like, we don't know yet because of the custody situation, etc. So lots of work. It's ongoing now. That whole solution part is ongoing now, and we have that commitment from Scottish Government to find the right solutions within the cost envelope that's presented to us. So we don't have an absolute date, I'm afraid, to what it looks like, but taking into consideration our custody needs, etc., then we absolutely want that to be within a reasonable area of where we currently operate out of, which is obviously the front of Greenock.
So did I hear there that there will be a replacement police station in Greenock? Is that what I heard you say?
Absolutely. The intention is that the replacement would be in Greenock. It may well be on the same site. These are the sort of things that we declared that, we don't have the final solution, but what we've said is that it will be disposed of and a replacement found. So whether that's on site it's currently or whether that's local, because that land search will have to be carried out. Effectively, there's nothing in and nothing out at this moment in time. All ideas are on the table.
I think you can take it that the desire of the community, and certainly the desire of my colleagues in this room, is that we have a significant police station within Greenock.
Yeah.
And I think within, as we're concerned, I think Greenock is the favourite because it's the largest town within Inverclyde. Councillor Pocket.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks very much for giving us that update. It doesn't really do an awful lot to reassure us, because I think what we're after is, if I can use it in a football parlance, we want to make sure we're either Celtic or Rangers in the top of the league, and not Ross County going to be relegated. So what we'd like to know is, you've got all these police stations that you're looking to refurbish. You know, everybody's going to press you to say ours needs to be done first. It seems already that we've been talking about a replacement for Greenock for a long time, for a couple of years at least now. I think our request is, how far up the league are we? Because obviously there has been an awful lot of work done on it. We know there's been discussions with possible replacements to the Greenock police station, maybe not bespoke, but ready to move in already. And probably the custody suite has been one of the, we know there's an awful lot of custody suites in Greenock, maybe too many that Inverclyde require. They're used on a rent-through and maybe even a Glasgow City region basis. So I think for us, we're looking for that wee bit of reassurance that from Greenock being, in our opinion, of what we were led to believe quite far up the list, that we're not slowly dropping down to we're Ross County in the danger of falling our own team, Greenock Morton, into the next division. So you can reassure us that we're still up there and vying for that European place. I think it'd be more reassurance than you've been able to give us now. And you don't need to do it in football terms.
Very good analogy, Councillor Flaherty. Sure.
I'm quite comfortable with it in football terms. It's my son did play for Greenock Morton, so I can have that claim. We don't want you to be a Greenock Morton. We don't want you to be a Ross County. We do see Greenock as a priority. Now, it's not at the very top of the list. We will say that, because there is stations that absolutely are non-inhabitable and not fit for purpose at this moment in time. And whilst Greenock isn't fit for modern policing, etc., it's not quite. It absolutely is a priority. You can have my assurance in that that it's a priority.
Midweek.
And it's not slipping down the list.
So I guess if we've got a 10-year programme, we don't want it to come in at year 10. We want it to be there within year 3. Because, as I said, it feels as if we've been talking about this for a long time already. We've been questioning our case colleagues on it for a long time already. So it does seem as if it's pressing, and I fully understand the pressure they're under and the financial constraints you're under. But that is the message that we certainly want to get to give to you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Stuart.
If I can come back on that?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, okay. I think one of the points that you raised when you come back there is about the custody facilities. Is that size we need them? All of these things need to be ironed out operationally to make sure that we get that proper solution. I'm not going to give you a timescale, right, but I'm going to say it's much closer to this year than it is year 10 on that. Year 10 is probably some of the buildings that actually are still really good, but eventually will need replaced. Our absolute intention is places like Greenock are early in the thinking of moving forward at pace, but I just can't give you that definite at this moment in time.
Councillor Cassidy.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I mean, my colleague in Council Clough has highlighted the issue about replacing stations has been something that's been ongoing, for years, even before they had this plan went in last year. I mean, to me, I just find it really unacceptable now that we're almost a year on, from when you've done that review, from when you had something presented to the board back in November, and we still don't have a picture about exactly what's happening and when. I mean, I find that incredibly unacceptable for, the residents who are in Inverclyde. I find it completely unacceptable for the officers that are working on the front line, that they don't know, what they are going to be working in, the years ahead. This, Scrutiny board's been pretty clear about where we want to see, the station retained, where we want to see custody facilities remain. it was a particular thing that was raised with the previous chief superintendent as well. And to me, it's just like the decision seems to be getting pushed further and further down the line. I mean, a couple of months ago, I wrote to the chief constable, about this very issue. I got a response from Mark Sutherland, the assistant chief constable. I kind of say the response really wasn't worth the paper it was written on. It was kind of like, it's been in this plan, it's now moved into this plan. And the one critical thing that was missing in that response was something that not only did I request, the leader of this council requested at a previous board now, I think almost over a year ago, about the publication of the options appraisal. I find it staggering that yet again we still don't seem to have this option appraisal published. By now you would have had it. It would have been something that without doubt should have been at the Police Scotland board as part of the range of documentation that you've been providing there. So I think my question is really got to be now, where is this options appraisal and why hasn't it been provided to that scrutiny panel?
Stuart?
Yeah, absolutely accept the criticism that's there. This is on the back of decades of underfunding in the police estate, so we're starting from a real difficult position on that. I know the ACC have written back to you, and I've kind of followed up in that sort of message. I can only say that the options appraisal is what we are starting now for solution. Now, we've already said that the master plan, so the master plan was about what is the future for our buildings, so decisions being made on whether they're retained, whether we've got hub and spoke model and all that going on just now. So whether that was that first piece of work, whether we're retaining the building, it's good enough, whether we need to upgrade it or whether we need to replace it, all of that work's been done. And we had to do that to present to the SPA board and subsequently Scottish Government to get that support and funding, because we can't do this without the funding that comes from Scottish Government. So we had to do that, and that's that piece of work. Now we're moving on to the solutions for it, and that absolutely means that what is the final solution for Greenock, and that's what we're doing just now. So that hasn't been done. What I said earlier in the conversation was around, we have people saying that we've got buildings that will suit you and stuff like that, but actually when we look at them at the moment, they're not, and that's why we need to get it right. There's no point doing this if we don't get it right. So forgive me for maybe not being so committal on it, and I do apologise for how long it's taken, but we do need to get that right, and that's the message that I need to get clear.
Thank you.
Okay, so just you're saying now you're only now working on the options appraisal, which is rather confusing because previously when your colleagues were here way back, I can't remember now exactly the date, last year, when I think the Scrutiny Board at the time was considering its response to the consultation, we were told that the option appraisal was being worked on and would be presented to the board and amongst the consultation responses. So what I find staggering to find out now is that is only just now getting worked on. So this could have been worked on last year. So what's happened, either we were told the wrong information in this scrutiny panel, or someone's dropped the ball somewhere and didn't do that level of work.
Well, all I can say is that it may be a play in the words that we're talking about options appraisal. What we'll go back to is that the outcome of the Greenock station was retain, dispose, rebuild, and all that sort of thing. But it's clear that Greenock police station was needing work done to be renewed, etc. We've declared that. What we need to do is get the solution now. So whether it's that options appraisal that we're talking about, yes, there's been options looked at. I think it's well publicised, the options that we looked at. What we're saying is we need the final solution. So it's options appraisal or final solution. That's what we're working towards now. So apologies if that doesn't tie in with the information you previously given.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. But we still have a very operational police station. It's not the most comfortable you could desire, but would you agree, Inspector Doherty, that it's operational?
It's certainly operational. Certainly a very good view from my office. I know that much anyway. But yeah, no, it's certainly operational. It's fit for purpose just now. But we do look forward to a new office working.
And I think, Stuart, that we would, as a scrutiny board, like to see the options appraisal if there is one in the future.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair request.
Right.
We'll engage as much as we can, especially through our operational colleagues. But the point is, yes, we do have a police station, and we're committed to making sure that continues, and certainly in the short term, making sure it's safe and fit for purpose and compliant, for the officer, staff, and the community.
I think certainly, thank you for coming today, but you can take back the concern you've heard from the panel, where we're all very concerned about the future of policing in Inverclyde. Councillor Quinn. Good afternoon.
Afternoon, convener. Thank you for that. I think you've touched on part of my question. So really it was, first of all, to say thanks for coming along and, and answering our questions. That's really helpful. The fact that you're here provides some sort of reassurance of giving us the answer that we were looking for and hoping for, but it's reassuring that you're coming here and being part of that scrutiny. So thanks for that. So convener, you asked kind of around about that. So my question is round about, about the workplace as it is and the legality of that, and also any sort of workplace regulations that we're not, because I think the conversation round about that at the start was that this is maybe not fit for purpose. So to get some sort of reassurance that it's still in terms of our workplace, it's still fit for purpose, albeit not very modern, and just really, and how much of a share now starting to get in that kind of sort of danger level, if you like, in terms of regulation. And also my concern about cost of maintenance. I think a part had come up before about how we would need to maintain the buildings. So there would probably be a reluctance that we're spending public money maintaining a building when really we should be working on the solution.
Thank you, Councillor Quinn. Stuart.
Yeah, I think when we talk about fit for purpose, what we're talking about for modern policing delivery and the absolutely dynamic approach that modern policing takes. So for modern policing, it's probably not fit for purpose for current. It's fit for purpose for the staff and officers that are there and fully compliant, and will continue to ensure that it is. The difficulty in that is you do spend public money maintaining these older buildings, which is regretful. To be honest, especially when we know we need to replace that. We'll continue to do that in the best value terms that we possibly can, but absolutely our commitments to make sure that it's safe and compliant for everybody that needs to use it. Hopefully that answers.
You okay, Councillor Quinn?
Yeah, great, thank you.
Thank you. No, I do understand the financial situation. I know the SPT in June of last year, we had our capital budget completely taken away, just like that. And dealing with the Scottish Government at the moment in terms of getting funds is not easy. It's not easy at all. So I do understand that there will be financial restraints in what you do. And you can go up with a certain proposal, and for a while it looks good, and then suddenly you're back to square one. But again, thank you, Stuart, for coming along. Do we have any more questions for the police group?
David.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Is this some more education?
I'm just, since I'm here, thank you, but since I'm here, I just would want to, it's not a question, just note my concern about the figures in relation to domestic abuse. And I understand about different reporting and so on, but I do just want to say how very concerning those figures are. And I take the caveats about the proportion that are, relatively minor offences or minor assaults, but I've written recently about escalation, and I just wanted to really note my concern about those figures. It's not a question. Thank you.
Noted, Councillor Armstrong, noted. Thank you. You notice that the girls here write down everything that you say and what I say. Well, thank you, everybody. We can now move on to agenda item number 3, Scottish Fire and Rescue Service Performance Actions. Rod, we've all got our report ready for you.
Thank you, convener. Good afternoon, everybody. As Councillor Wilson has touched on earlier, this is the first report we brought to the panel in the new format.
Follows a changed software packages that SFRS uses to both collect the data and to produce and format the reports we present to the panel. The data presented, the way the data presented is remove some of the clutter from the pages while keeping the key statistics and information along with the support narrative. Also provides some data in with fire safety audits. This wasn't included in the previous reports, and I did always put it into the narrative, but it now has a section of its own. At the very end, there is now a narrative box allowing us to provide an overview and highlight some of our community safety engagement. It takes place by both our operational crews and our community action team across the Clyde each quarter. As normal, the report line by line, but I will go through each section and pick out some highlights. So if we take section 1, as can be seen within the summary, there were a total of 301 incidents in Inverclyde during quarter 4, 2024-25. This is up from 227 over the same period in the previous year, which was an increase of 32%. The breakdown of that was that it included a 21% increase in fire incidents, a 27% increase in special service incidents, and a 31% increase in false alarms. As we go through the remaining sections, they will provide some more details about that. Section 2, this illustrates the trends across the 5 incident types that are the local priorities within the local fire and rescue plan for Inverclyde, and the trends are tracking those incidents over the last 4 years. To move into accidental dwelling fires, quarter 4 of 2024-25 were 16 accidental dwelling fires within Inverclyde. This is up from 6 in the same quarter of 2024, an increase of 167%. In 11 of the 16 incidents, a cooking appliance was the source of ignition, which is well within the normal trend for accidental dwelling fires in Inverclyde. And distraction or falling asleep was a contributing factor in 9 out of those incidents. In 2 cases, the dwelling involved no protection present, and the remaining 14, the protection was present and raised the alarm in 13 of those particular incidents. Our crews continue to engage with occupiers of dwellings where a fire has occurred through our post-domestic incident procedure. This will allow them to provide advice, guidance, where the occupants meet the criteria, and we offer them a home fire safety visit. In terms of accidental dwelling fire casualties, this quarter reported a 25% reduction in accidental dwelling fire casualties, with 3 compared to 4 within the same period in the previous year. 2 casualties were removed to hospital, 1 with serious injuries, the other with slight injuries. The 3rd casualty received first aid and was released at scene. As mentioned in our accidental dwelling fire section, our ongoing community safety engagement activities across Inverclyde incorporates those specifically targeted at reducing accidental dwelling fires and their associated casualties. And obviously that was our home fire safety visit programme, which is now underway under the renewed criteria. Non-fire casualties. For this quarter, we reported a 42% increase on the year-on-year indicator for non-fire casualties, for a total of 10. This is up from 7 in the same period, 2023-24. As has been the general trend for some time, most of these incidents are where we have received a call to assist another partner agency. In this quarter, 3 casualties were as a result of road traffic collisions, and the remaining 7, including the 2 non-fire fatalities within Inverclyde, were incidents where we were assisting another agency. We continue to work with our partners to reduce non-fire casualties, and our crews and community action teams to continue to deliver engagement within our communities in relation to road and water safety. Again, that's supported by our partners in Police Scotland, Her Majesty's Coast Guard and Inverclyde Council. In terms of deliberate fires, in quarter 4, 24-25, saw a 9% reduction in deliberate fires within Inverclyde, with a total of 56 during this period. As you can see from the graph, illustrating the trend over the last 4 years, the number of deliberate fires across Inverclyde has been falling with occasional spikes, and this reduction is a result of the hard work and close partnership working between SFRS, Inverclyde Council, Police Scotland and our other partners, and we intend to continue to drive this trend downwards. Non-domestic fires. Through our ongoing routine audit programme, thematic audits in response to identified trends in non-domestic fires occurring both locally and nationally, alongside post-fire audits following any fire at a domestic premise, allows us to continue to ensure that non-domestic premises within Inverclyde are safe for our communities when they are at work, when they visit, or if they live close to non-domestic premises within the area. As I said, the audit programme is now mentioned within the report, with a total there of audits to be carried out by fire safety enforcement officers, which Adrian was one of until he took up his current position as Temporary Station Commander. To move on to road traffic collisions, we're reporting a 20% increase in road traffic collisions attended within Inverclyde in the period covered by this report. That percentage increase, equates to an increase of 1 incident compared to the previous period last year, with total increasing from 5 to 6. The 3 casualties resulting from road traffic collisions in Inverclyde all had slight injuries, with 2 of them going to hospital and the 3rd being released at scene. Home fire safety visits. With the changes to the home fire safety visit programme, in particular the qualifying criteria that we use to identify who will get a home fire safety visit as opposed to a previous universal approach, we would like to see a reduction in the overall numbers of home fire safety visits, but an increase in those visits which are to high or very high risk households. This is as we transition from quantity to quality in relation to home fire safety visits. By making this shift and by targeting these interventions on those who are most at risk from fire within our communities, we can have a greater overall impact on community safety compared to our previous universal approach of home fire safety visits to all. Fire safety enforcement. So across the intervention in Inverclyde, we have 4 protection officers. These are 2 fire safety enforcement officers who are uniformed staff and 2 civilian fire safety auditing officers. Of these, Inverclyde has a single fire safety enforcement officer assigned to it, but with support from the other 3 protection officers when required. Each protection officer has a target of a minimum of 122 audits per year, and this comprises a mix of routine, planned audits, post-fire audits, and on top of this, protection officers also respond to consultation requests in relation to licensing applications, for example, alcohol, skin piercing, short-term lengths, etc. So all that workload is built around those 4 protection officers, and they do that alongside the audits that they are carrying out. And at this moment in time, we are on target with our audit programme for 2024-25 within Inverclyde. And finally, our additional text box now have between safety engagement. I'll not go through all the items listed there in section 12, but I will just add that these are a small snapshot of the community safety engagement activities that our operational crews and our community action team carry out across Inverclyde. These activities can be routine activities, for example, work to reduce accidental dwelling fires and associated casualties, or they may be targeted in response to identifying a trend of incident types that have occurred within the area, or as part of our seasonal thematic action plans, which are aimed at addressing the prevalent risks across those seasons based on the historical incident data. And as you can see from the report, that's just a small snapshot. It's hard to pick out what are the kind of key ones to highlight to use. That's just ones that I picked at random from the list. But as I say, that's probably less than 10% of what we've done over the quarter.
Thank you, Rod. I know, Rona, your figures are much heavier than the figures in here, but this is quite nice, isn't it? Just a hint, you know. I do notice that the non-domestic fires in the next quarter will increase by 50% because of what happened at Pottery Street. That will include ours. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose you can see from the report the diversity of the incidents that the Scottish Fire and Rescue attend. You would normally think it was just fires, but you see from the report, you know, the amount of stuff that you actually go attend to. What I want to discuss, what I want to say is about the 2 proposed options which have been approved by the Scottish Fire and Rescue to cut services to Inverclyde. And I use the words cuts because I don't think they're efficiencies. I think we need to kind of separate them out. your own members, full-time firefighters, they've raised some concerns, and what they are saying is this is going to have a devastating impact, because no matter what option is chosen, there's going to be a loss of firefighters and appliances. And in their opinion of experienced firefighters, full-time firefighters, that this will result in the cost of lost buildings and cost lives. And it's going to have a devastating effect. I've been lucky enough to talk to a lot of the firefighters in the Fire Brigade Union, and one of the things that they talk about that stands out is that there's been times, or will be times, where they attend a fire and they have to make the judgment call whether to get in or not, because they might not have the backup there. They might have to wait for an appliance coming from, say, Lochwinnock or Johnson. And your guys have to make a call then. They can make a call whether there could be somebody life's at risk in this building. You guys have got to make the call whether to get in without the support you need. And that could have a devastating effect on the families, but could also have a devastating effect on your members, whether they make the right call or not, whether they shouldn't be put under that pressure to make that call. But it's pretty clear that these two options which have been approved are going to have a big impact on Inverclyde. So I suppose my question to you is, do you share the views and concerns of your colleagues and of the Fire Brigade Union? And you know, what reassurances can you give? Can you give any reassurances to the Inverclyde public that when these cuts come in, the fears of your members, your firefighters, will not be recognised? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Colin.
Yeah, so as you said, there are two options put forward which are made it through the process. So for Inverclyde, there are the two options which have made it through the balance room and will now go to public consultation. So they're not set in stone, they are still just in the option stage. The full public consultation, the aim is that will start at the end of this month, and that will be a 12-week public consultation. And there will be obviously online and public events that we will take feedback from the public. For members, they are part of the consultation as well. They'll get to put their thoughts across. In terms of the changes, so option one does involve the removal of appliance. This appliance which is already removed from Greenham. It would make permanent the temporary withdrawal, but that's the only change under option one. The option two would be maintaining that status quo, but then also making changes to the duty system that crews some of the appliances within the Inverclyde area. And hence why we went through a public consultation on that, is to see what the public's views on that are, and that for members. In terms of, do I agree with the FBU and our members, our service members' positions that it will have a hugely detrimental effect? No, we're fairly confident Inverclyde has a good level of fire cover, and we have maintained that throughout the initial temporary appliance withdrawal. We're not facing any station closures in Inverclyde in none of the areas, and I'm comfortable that we have a level of response that's necessary to meet the risk profile of Inverclyde.
Thank you, Rod. You can have a supplementary.
Yeah,
Colin?
just has. In one of these options, what it's going to reduce, obviously reducing the number of firefighters or appliances. You say this will make a change, temporary change permanent. But one of these options, what we're going to have is a lesser service in evenings and weekends. Is that correct?
So one of the changes is to change some appliances from full-time appliance to what's called a day duty system appliance, which is crewed by full-time firefighters. Depends. I can't say whether it's because we're not at the stage of deciding what that day duty system looks like. It may just be they may be crewed by full-time firefighters 7 days a week between 8 in the morning and 6 at night, and only be an on-call appliance in the evenings. Or alternative models that sometimes used elsewhere in the UK, it will be a Monday to Friday full-time response with the on-call covering evenings and weekends. So that's not been agreed as of yet. The proposal is that yes, two appliances will become a day duty. So for one, that's effectively, as you say, changing its cover evenings and weekends from a whole time down to an on-call evening and weekends. The other one is it's already an on-call appliance. It will become crewed by day during the day by full-time firefighters. So during the day, its cover will actually be stepped up because that's the time at which we know we struggle to get our weekend appliances out the door because of the work commitments of our on-call firefighters. It's predominantly during the day that we struggle to keep those appliances available with the modern way of working, and most employers not willing to release on-call firefighters during the day. And so we'd see an upgrade to that. That appliance would then constantly be available during the day. And when we know that that's when most of the time we're unavailable, by upgrading it to a day duty appliance. But there is that flip side of it where the other appliance will lose its full-time cover at evenings and potentially weekends, depending on the exact day shift duty model that they choose. Because I say, obviously, as there's still options, they haven't said that what model they're going to work on, and say there are several day duty systems across the UK, so they depend what they adopt.
Colin,
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I know
you're not giving up here, are you?
No, I have the utmost respect for what the guys do, but my concern is.
Well, I think we understand your concern,
You know,
and this is why we've got the name, the word scrutiny in our.
There's a lot of talk about having a day service now. We know that fires and car accidents and all these other things aren't scheduled between 8 and 6 o'clock. So there's going to be a reduced service between the evenings and the weekends now. With all due respect to the parts of the retained firefighters, the evidence is that when their response time isn't as fast as your own. Because they're not sitting in a fire station and ready to go, they're sitting at home or else they're sitting at work. So then that makes if somebody calls 999 and there's a fire beyond 6 o'clock or at the weekends and the cover is from the retained firefighters, it's going to take longer. So the evidence from, I've spoken to your own guys, are saying that the perception that you're going to phone 999, your house is in fire, your family's at risk, and it will be firefighters will be there within minutes, is just not applicable anymore. You could be sitting for 30 minutes. The 30 minutes is the difference between, well, I apologise, this is the numbers that we're given to me by your own guys, the guys who attend these incidents, and they're saying that, you know, there will be, and I think you'd have to accept that if you're using retained firefighters at the nights and weekends, given their family commitments, their work commitments, they're working from home, the time to get through traffic to get to the fire station, there will be a longer time before they get there. And the longer time it takes to get there is going to put lives at risk. I think that's just common sense. And you could look at any report. But this is the evidence coming from your own guys now, and I can only put to you what your own guys are telling us, and what they're saying is, opposed to what you say, is any cut is going to cost lives. It's going to see buildings lost, and in Inverclyde, as we talked about the police service, we are constantly seeing reductions in service across the board, no matter what we deal with. And I appreciate, I apologise for putting you in a position here, but this is evidence been given to us, and your guys have been very clear that this could cost lives, and you can't have a 9-to-5 fire service. Evenings and weekends are crucial, whether it's people coming in for pubs, whether it's whatever, you know, it could cause these fires or incidents. We can't come away from the fact that you can't run a 9-to-5 service, and to run the out-hour service or the retained fire service is going to put even more pressure and create longer times. Thanks.
Thank you, Colin. Rod.
Thank you. So, yes, it will be 10 response times. It won't be 30 minutes. The retained crews have 5 minutes to reach the station within the pager's been activated, and the appliance is expected to go within a maximum of 8 minutes. So, if they fail to mobilise within that time, another appliance will already have been sent. So, within 5 minutes, although 8 minutes after 5 minutes, our control room will mobilise a separate appliance to ensure there's an appliance on road to the incident while waiting for them. If they then book mobile and they're then closer, then the other appliance will be stood down. In terms of the response, and yes, it is longer because, as you say, they are coming from a home address, they're not within a fire station, so we have to build in that 5 minutes, allowing them to travel to the station. They are recruited on working and living within 5 minutes of the fire station, 5 to 8 minutes of the station. And in the odd occasion, there will be occasions where you might wait 10 minutes for fire engine, but that could happen right now. That's just because all our appliances in Inverclyde are tied up and you are waiting for Johnson or Renfrew or somebody coming. But that could happen that could happen this afternoon as we're sitting here. In terms of the 95 cover, I will point out that 90% of Scotland are covered by weekday firefighters. There's only 10% of Scotland's covered by full-time firefighters, and there haven't been any major losses of life due to waiting for weekend responding in the other 90% of Scotland. The information that we've utilised to decide on the options, they have looked at the last 30 years of incident data and looked at when we're having incidents, what type of incidents we're having, what appliances we have responding to that in terms of both the station that they're responding from and who's arrived first in attendance from what station, and also what type of appliances they are, so looking at specialist appliances, the high reach appliances, etc. So they've looked at all that data, and it's based on that the incident data is supporting that at night. That's when we are in Inverclyde, that's vital during the day, so that's why they've looked at we could potentially change those options that put forward for Inverclyde at those times. That research was undertaken by external bodies, and it's academics within a couple of universities of Scotland who have done all the data behind the service quality review. And it's out the back of that and going through the process of us looking at it as a service and looking at what the alternatives we can do and then looking at what would be feasible for us and meet the requirements of what we need to meet under the SDR that's brought us to where we are. As I say, nothing is set in stone, this is all still up for public consultation. And as I say, that'll kick off at the end of this month.
Can I just one more, David? Is that okay?
Of course, you're here as a guest, aren't you? You're a
Absolutely.
substitute, aren't you?
I just did this.
Substituting from the FRB.
I just, this thing I can't get in my head, and it comes to you on guys again, and you said yourself that you could be sitting waiting for a high rich appliance coming in as a block winner for Johnson. Is what you guys are saying that they could find themselves and have found themselves standing outside the buildings watching a fire raging, the family's at risk, and they can't get in, and they've had to make that call. It's just it must be horrific, it must be an awful pressure on your guys that they are left to make that call. It could be any one of our families burning, and you've got trained firefighters standing outside, knowing or wanting to get in, but they can't, standing waiting, and that must be a hell of a thing for them to live with. If there was a tragedy, when they couldn't get in, and somebody has to make that decision. I have so much respect for them if they've got to make that, but they should not be put under that pressure because there's not an appliance available. Not really so much a question, David, just an observation. Thanks.
Okay. So I don't know if that needs a reply.
I was just going to say, just on the thing about high reach appliance, that is part of the change that took place is Green now was a dedicated high reach appliance as opposed to a combination appliance that did both high reach and pumping. That was one of the things when the second full-time appliance was removed, was the dedicated high reach put in there. So long as it's not tied up in another incident, we shouldn't need to wait for Johnson's one coming. And in terms of the crews standing by waiting for the one coming appliance, that can happen with two full-time crews going to something because either the traffic conditions are such that one of the appliances is held up getting through to it, or alternatively, as I said earlier, where all the other appliances around in the bike are tied up, and that crew, who are somebody from Greenock, are then waiting for Paisley or Renfrew or Johnson or somebody attending to back them up, certainly potentially.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for indulging me, David.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Thank you, Rod. Councillor Clockerty.
Thank you, David. I think first thing to say is that we definitely are not attending full-time. We think that both the retained and full-time firefighters do a fantastic job. So, and I know Colin plays that as well. So please take that back. We know what a terrible job your retained firefighters do in Inverclyde, whether it's Port Glasgow or Gourock, we really do. I suppose a couple of things for me. I hope as a scrutiny committee we'll be able to do our own submission to it. Yeah, this is given us that. So I'm happy with that we'll do our own submission from this committee. I suppose what I've said before when it comes to the fire service, and I know it's one of these anecdotal things. I've paid my house and my fire insurance for 40 odd years. Touch wood, I've never had to use it once. Right. I'm happy that there's a fire station in the middle of Greenock, the animals there, the full-time fire officers. If I never call on them, ever, I'm still happy that they're there. I'm still happy to pay my taxes and to know, just in case they're out there. Now, it just so happened that one of the instances that we're talking about today happened a stone's throw from me. There was a bad fire in Shop Base, I think that's okay to say, which was happened early in the morning, wasn't during the day. Firefighters come out and do that. It made me realise how important the service actually is, because it was probably one of the casualties we're talking about as well. That's all I'm saying that, and before you don't want to, but it showed me how
ready to come in there.
How important it is that service. I'm happy to pay for that service. I'm happy to pay my tax on that service. But what I want is, I prefer a 24/7 full-time fire service that I know is going to be there, because I think it's that important. We've got 6 high flats in the centre of Greenock. That's why we need these high reach. We know if something goes wrong, it goes wrong big time. So that's why we're so passionate in defending our fire service, the same way as we are in defending our police service locally as well. So I suppose it's just a comment for us and a comment for me, and I suppose that we'll be able to put that in writing.
Yes.
Yes. I've got to admit, when we do consultations, the consultations this time is a wee bit like, what would you want cut off? Your leg or your head? Oh, well, we'll take your leg cut off because it's not as serious. So you get a wee bit, and hopefully in our comments, we will be able to say, well, we really do. And the options itself is a wee bit like that. You know, which one of your arms do you want? Thank you, Chair.
And thank you. We could ask Councillor Jackson to be a guest contributor to our answer to the consultation. Councillor Quinn, you've waited patiently.
Sorry, my mute was stuck there. Thanks, convener. I think it's just, I mean, I think in terms of that conversation, I think we've kind of said what needs to be said, and we'll look forward to the consultation. Hopefully a number of the public will also complete that because they're concerned. I know it's out with the reporting period because the Pottery Street fire is fairly recent, but it would be good maybe for the next report to kind of analyse that in terms of response times, because this did happen out with normal hours. This was the weekend where Inverclyde became pretty much an island again. So any of us that were stuck in that traffic trying to get to the other end out of Inverclyde and also trying to come back at night proved very difficult. So it would be good to kind of get the response times on that, and if any changes, what impact that would have on getting there that quickly. So probably, and while I mention that, it's probably just to thank all the crews and the staff who were at that scene there, because you could see it was such a coordinated response from the council and from the fire service to get the road opened quickly. We probably all could say it probably wasn't quick enough, especially when you were stuck in it. But I was glad on my return journey I did manage to get through the main road with a bit of assistance. So just want to put my thanks on record as well. But just if we could get those stats and a wee bit more commentary on that, because it was such a significant incident for the next committee. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Rod. Do you want to comment briefly on the Pottery Street?
I was not on duty that weekend, so I don't know a lot about it, but certainly I can bring a report to the next panel with the response times and a kind of general overview of the incident itself and our activities. And I'll just thank Councillor for your thanks, and I'll sure pass them on to the crews that attended, and that'll be appreciated.
Thank you, that would be helpful. Councillor Cassidy, your light was on.
Councillor clocked actually.
Right. So your light's back up. Any other questions? No? Well, thank you very much, Rod and Adrian. Adrian, we hope for perhaps a bigger contribution the next time. But Rod, thank you as always. We enjoyed your report, and I certainly enjoyed the new presentation of it. Yes, pass it on to whoever did it. That's excellent. We now move on to agenda item number 4, which is new business. Local Police and Fire Scrutiny Panel Update Report. Mr. Scott.
Thank you very much, Convener. Good afternoon again, everybody. This is just an update from the two national boards and initiatives that's happening across Scotland that may have an impact on Under 5. I'm not going to go through the full report. I might bring your attention to a couple of points in it. Some of the 3.3, there's a final confirmation action research been done as a final report. It's a very good read if the councillors would like to read that, if you want to go through that. The other thing is just to bring your attention to some of the work that's going on across the board. And 3.7, just look at the annual police plan, 25-26. And obviously we are looking at our own plan, our colleagues from Police Scotland to do that. And obviously the other things that we're looking at is just there's some initiatives going on to tackle, and we've already touched on that today around retail crime. You see there's a bit in that in the paper in 5.1. There's also 6.1, there's been a motorcycle and safety campaign launched, and also in 8 is a wildfire campaign, 25 for fire. So happy to get any questions on it.
Any questions, colleagues? David, any update on the body-worn cameras? We did discuss it at the last meeting.
So,
Yes, Rona.
yes, so it has kicked off in another part of the country. So they are working through some of the issues and challenges that are being encountered when something new comes into play. We will have it here next year. The date from the chief have been quite clear, though, if there's efficiencies to be made in terms of those timescales, we'll be getting it sooner. But we are in the programme for the beginning of next year for body work.
Is that calendar year or financial?
Calendar year.
Right.
Calendar year. So, yeah, beginning of next year for us here. So it's a positive on a number of counts. The issues that they're encountering just now, you can imagine it's around like the volume of the footage and transferring that to our partners and fiscal. It's like cutting and all these technological workarounds that we need to put in place to be able to capture exactly what it is we need to capture, so that we're not overburdening systems and people and spending hours watching footage that we don't need to watch. So there are some bits and pieces that they'll work through over the course of the rollout, and so I'm hoping by the time it gets to us, we'll be ready to go and we'll have ironed out all the issues, and we will be cooking with gas from the get-go. But next year is the answer in relation to that.
Yeah, thank you, Rona. Colleagues, any questions for Hugh and what? Thank you for that, Hugh. Thank you, everybody, for attending and safe home, and particularly thank you, Stuart, for coming and giving us as much of an update as you could. Thank you.